Very good morning. So today we are going to start our discussion on economic survey. In the first class we will be doing first two chapters of the economic survey. So far this is the 18th session. We have elaborately discussed all the major conceptual parts of economy. All conceptual part, all recent developments related to that XYZ has been already discussed. Last class we have been doing external sector. Uska before we had done this fiscal policy budgeting. Uska before monetary policy, money supply, all these basic economic concepts we have already covered. Here we are even discussing the economic survey. Our focus will be completely prelims oriented. Baki all concept that is important for mains or data facts that is important for mains, you can read it after the prelims. Today if we are discussing, we try to connect as much to the basic concept as possible, and we will limit our discussion to too much of prelims focus only. Go ahead. So yeah, what is the first chapter of economic survey? State of economy 2020 recovery complete. So this is something like a very big statement. What economic survey is starting with? Pandemic, you read this everywhere. Economic survey is the impact of pandemic on Indian economy is over. Recovery of Indian economy from pandemic is complete. Why this is such a, you can say, bold statement, such a bold statement by economic survey or the government? Why? Like if you look at the factual level, the economy is, where was the economy before pandemic? We have reached that level. So we are going, but pandemic has so much other impacts. Like if you look at this labor force participation rate, if you look at the capex investments in India, all these have been one way or the other impacted by pandemic of COVID-19. So the impact is like long term. Even we are continuing this taper tantrum which we are discussing, all these are coming from this pandemic only. So even when the world there is impacts are continuing, our government or economic surveys coming with a bold statement that the recovery is complete in Indian economy. Once recovery is complete, what is looking way ahead? If we say recovery is complete, your excuse is finished. Next, you have to give something to boost this economic growth. Now that is where this economic survey becomes important, or that is where the government comes with the concept of Amrit Kal. For next few decades, how should India go? Where should India be in the next few? All this concept becomes important. Go ahead. Let's start the discussion with a small talk on what is taper tantrum. Exactly what is taper tantrum? If there is a different interest rate differential between US Fed and emerging economies, due to this interest rate differential, capital will flow from emerging economies to US market. This XYZ phenomenon is called taper tantrum. When it happened first time in 2013. What happened exactly? We have this subprime crisis in 2008. After the subprime crisis, what the US has done or advanced economies has done, they were extremely put their market rates at low level. Why? Because it was similar to a pandemic situation. Recession was happening. So recession is happening. What is objective of the government? Increase the money supply. How to increase money supply? By following expansionary monetary policy. So they were following an expansionary monetary policy from 2008 to 2013. Now by 2013 the recovery has become done. So they are reversing the trend. In 2018, in a very short time, the trend has reversed. Due to this short-term reversal of trend, US investment become much more attractive than investments in India. So the FPIs which we were discussing in the last class, they took the money from Indian and emerging economies and invested in the US economy. And what will happen? All the consequences we were discussing, like rupees started depreciating, our imports become costlier. All these impacts India was facing due to this taper tantrum of 2013. Now if we go ahead, we come to this 2020, pandemic happened. That's the same response you can see. Pandemic happened, then there is a sudden drop in for a US Fed rate because the expansionary policy is needed to support the economy by increasing the money supply. So there is a sudden fall in after the pandemic. Now the pandemic is going on. Now the government is thinking like pandemic effect is neutralized. Now we need to get back to our normal levels. So this rise is also creating a similar effect like that happened in 2030. But due to so many XYZ factors, the implication is not that much as that of 2013. India is in much better position to handle this reversal of trend during this time. We already seen that FPIs, we are getting a negative FPIs during this year after continuous positive even during the pandemic times. But this is not enough. We have so much FDIs, we have so much remittances. So this FPI is also a volatile component. So this is also manageable in the economy. Go ahead. This is all the data variables showing how much is US Fed increasing the rate and how much it is impacting different countries. Developing countries like South Korea, South Africa, India, all these countries are experiencing an outflow of FPIs. Go ahead. Now we have the second part, like recent challenges before global economy. Global economy faced continuous set of challenges in the recent past. First one, the pandemic. Pandemic happened. Then this was like in 100 years, we never seen a situation like this. After World War, this was a situation where every country was imposing lockdowns and all the economy was shrinking throughout the world. So this was such a big event. And just when we were recovering from the pandemic, we have this Russia-Ukraine crisis. Russia-Ukraine crisis, what exactly happened? Problem is not the geopolitical aspect. Problem is it disrupted the supply chain and commodity prices. Disruption in supply chain, like Russia was a major source of gas to Europe, crude oil to different part of the world. Crude oil exporter was Russia, and Ukraine was exporter of food items, wheat, and all these many items. So this disruption of commodity prices lead to increase in inflation in advanced world. Crude oil become costly, all other commodities become costly. So there has been inflation which already was existing in the world because of the US Fed rate reversal. Fed rate was reversing, and there was also always an expansionary monetary policy was going on for 1 to 2 years. Due to this, there was already inflationary pressure in the advanced economies, and above that we have this disruption of supply chain crisis. So both these combined to lead to a situation where US is experiencing 8 to 10% of inflation. From US perspective, this is too high inflation. From Indian perspective, we are comfortable with 4 to 5% inflation. We are today expecting an inflation of 6 to 7%. So from our perspective, this change is little bit small, but from US perspective, from a 1 to 2% inflation level to 8 to 10% means that level of change is extremely high, and US and other advanced economy today are going through this phase. This is one of the biggest challenge world is facing. Now tightening of monetary policy, this we have discussed so many times, I am not going to repeat it. The same effect of taper tantrum, how it impacts a different part of the economy, we in detail discussed in last class. How it is an impact on rupee, and how if rupee is impacting like this, what RBI is doing. If RBI is doing this, how is it is impacting this crude oil imports into India, and how it is impacting Indian exports. All these aspects you have to be very clear about. Go ahead. Figures you can have a look from here. What is this slide is saying? So if rupee is depreciating means what? Dollar means if you want to get $1, you have to now give 80 rupees. Well, it was 70 rupees, suppose 72, something like that. So you have to give more money to get same amount of goods which you get from $1. So technically you have to get 1 kg or 1 barrel of crude oil. You have to now spend more rupees. More rupees means crude oil has become costly. So that get translated into all other sectors. So our current account deficit is increasing. Higher commodity prices and depreciation of rupees are the major reasons for this. Go ahead. This is all the data you can see, read out from here. Now this is the data on India's foreign exchange reserves. As I already told, into September around this time, we had the highest forex reserves around $621 billion. From after that, we are continuously falling this. Our forex reserves are continuously falling. Why it is falling? Because of all this, rupee is depreciating too much. And to support rupee, RBI is selling dollars in the market, and RBI, from where it is selling from its forex reserves, and due to this, there is a fall in these forex reserves. Go ahead. What else? This economic survey is saying India is expected to grow at 6.5 to 7%. It is saying that despite the world is going through a very tough times, despite there is a risk of monetary policy reversal in the advanced world, despite there is a risk of high inflation in the Western world, despite there is a risk of recession existing throughout the world, despite all these negative conditions, Indian economy is going to register very high growth of 6.5 to 7%. Now, what are the growth drivers in India? Surge in exports in FY22. In pandemic times, we have observed that India's export crossed the 400 billion export target set for 2022 year. If before pandemic you are thinking, you may think that this can never be achieved. From that position, even despite a total disruption or shrinkage of GDP during a pandemic, we have achieved this target somehow. So there has been a certain surge in India's exports in financial year 2022. And what is the implications of this? This surge was very for a small period, like vaccines, all these Indian products were in demand in the market. So this was agriculture, wheat exports, all this. So this was only there for a small period of time. So, but and in FY23, you can see that this surge is normalizing. But due to this surge, there has been improvement in India's manufacturing and in investment into India's manufacturing sector, and other variables in the manufacturing sector has improved. One variable you can find here is, I don't think we have graph for that. So manufacturing is like capacity utilization ratio. What is capacity utilization ratio? If you made a company where 100 goods can be produced, but actually you are producing 80 goods, then your capacity utilization is 80%. Similarly, so due to this surge, our capacity utilization has increased, and there has been more investment into the manufacturing sector. So this is a growth driver for the future, we are seeing it as. Secondly, domestic consumption. That, like I told in the GDP class also, domestic consumption is something which is controlling Indian economic growth. Around 58% of Indian GDP is contributed by domestic consumption, C component. Like GDP is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. C is the private consumption, investment, government spending, export minus import. Here C is only contributing to 58% of the GDP of Indian economy. Release of pent-up demand. What is pent-up demand? When something very bad happens, what people will think? Maybe things will go further bad, so they don't spend, they keep that money aside. Maybe if more pandemic come, next wave of lockdown came, where will we get the money? So people don't spend and keep accumulating the money. Now once this pandemic period is over, people are confident that now we have took 2-3 vaccines, now pandemic is not going to come back. So due to this, people start spending whatever they have accumulated during the bad times. So this will increase the C component in the, that is private consumption in the economy. This is one of the big factor while India was experiencing higher growth phase just after the pandemic phase. Release of pent-up demand. Concept clear? Only question can come is what is pent-up demand, and there will be 4 confusing options. Out of this, you have to correct pick the right one. Now one other factor in data factor, that is base effect. What is base effect? If there is a sudden disruption in 1 year, like if 100 is the value, you fall it to 80 rupees. Now next year you are just reaching 88 rupees, still you will register 80 to 88 means a 100% growth. So the change in the higher growth you experience in data due to the catastrophic fall in a before year, that XYZ phenomenon is called base year. This also we discussed in last class, I guess. Go ahead. What are other India's growth drivers? That is capex thrust over the years. What is capex thrust? Capital investments. Capital investments, India has increased considerably over the years. If you look at this graph, like in financial year 2018, our capex investment was only 1.8 lakh crore. From there we reached 4.5 lakh crore. That means huge progress we have achieved in capital investment that is done in the economy. How this will return? How this will serve as a growth driver? Because these are creating assets. If assets are creating, these assets will be creating jobs, this asset will be creating products, this asset will be creating exports. So this asset, one way or other, contributing too many ways into the economy for a long period of time. So due to all this, capex reserves, India's increased thrust in capex reserves in last 4-5 years is one of the major factor for India expecting huge growth in the upcoming future. Private investments remains upbeat. You can see this graph here. Private investment, even though during pandemic it has registered a fall, now it is 3.3, much above the pre-pandemic levels. So private investment, like the I component in the GDP, this is also we are increasing. Declining scheduled commercial banks, gross NPA. So gross NPA also we are seeing that public sector banks, every banks it is decreasing. Scheduled commercial banks it is falling, public sector banks it is falling. Most of the banks you can see that the NPAs are falling. Now what is gross NPA? Gross NPA, net NPA and provisioning. Gross NPA is that if 100 rupees doesn't came back, that for 90 days there is no servicing of interest as well as principal, then we call it as NPA, and that NPA amount is called gross NPA. Now if 100 rupees become NPA, government has kept 80 rupees as provisioning. Now difference between gross NPA and provisioning, this difference is called net NPA. Gross NPA we will use for calculation of how much is the level of NPA in the economy. Net NPA we will use for calculating what is the banking health of the bank. If more provisioning bank has kept, then even though high gross NPA is there, bank can manage that risk. It is in Basel norms, that's why we are using Basel conditions, Basel norms 3 conditions and all, we will use net NPA. But all other aspects we will be using the term gross NPA only. Go ahead. Now the economic survey is saying that India is having inclusive growth. Inclusive growth means our urban unemployment is at a 4-year low, around 7.2%. Urban unemployment is reducing. Now we have this emergency credit linked guarantee scheme. This is giving loan to MSMEs. So our credit to MSMEs has increased. At the same time, these loans are very less NPAs, registering very low NPAs. So our MSME health system is improving. Now Manrega works, there is 60% of the Manrega works is work on individual land. That means not on public land, some other private person's land, people will be coming and working. This work is 60% of the share. And what it means is on his land there will be some asset created. So Manrega is also contributing to asset creation in the economy. After that we have PM Kisan, that means direct money transfer to farmer accounts. So this is also increasing, leading to rural households getting more money, more disposable income with rural households. That means more consumption, C component of the economy. Try to relate everything with this general GDP equation, C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Keep that equation open so that if any conceptually complicated statement comes, you should be able to pick whatever is the logic there. Then PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, Anna Yojana, that gives 5 kg rice and other pulses and other things during the pandemic time. So this has improved the impoverishment level of the economy. Now we will, for some of these schemes, we will look a little bit in detail. The first one is we have solved that the urban unemployment rate has reduced by 4-year low. It's around 7.2% right now. Now where we are getting this data? We are getting from Periodic Labor Force Survey, PLFS. Who releases this? NSSO under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now within the PLFS you have 4 concepts. First one is labor force participation rate. What is labor force participation rate? Out of 100 people, if 60 people want to work in the economy, then 60 is the labor force participation rate. 60 people want to work, be very sure about it, they needed the work. It doesn't mean 60 people are doing the work. 60 people want to do the work, then 60 is the labor force participation rate. Now worker population ratio, that is out of the 60 there will be unemployment. Suppose there is unemployment, 10 people didn't got the job. Only 50 people are actually doing the job. So worker population ratio is 50 or 50 by 100 you can say. This is labor force participation rate. 10 people will not get the job due to unemployment. That people are also included in the labor force participation rate. Now what is unemployment rate? Then how much is percentage of people who are not unemployed, who wanted to work and not able to find work in the economy? Such kind of person are called unemployment. Activity status, usual status means? Usual status means it is for last 365 days you are considering, and how much, what is the status of his work. Depending on that you consider stays activity usual status. Now activity status, current weekly status, that is for 7 days. There is two status, that is one is usual status, that is for 1 year 365 days, and other one is weekly, current weekly status, that is for 7 days. Go ahead. Then we talked about the emergency credit linked guarantee scheme, ECLJS. It is providing 100% guarantee for loans mobilized by MSMEs for identified lenders. Like if you're taking MSMEs taking loan from bank, you will get 100% credit guarantee. Loans taken from banks and NBFCs are also a part of it. 3 lakh crore fund is allocated for this, for giving this guarantee to this under the Atmanirbhar Bharat program. National Credit Guarantee Trustee Company, NCGTC. This will provide the XYZ guarantee offered by the government. Then MSMEs should not have any NPS if they have to avail the XYZ facilities. NBFC loans are also included part of it. Question, options can come from basic features of this XYZ. Which ministry is doing this? All these schemes are under Ministry of Finance only. I have no confusion over it. Go ahead. Now, if you look at the India's second chapter, we are coming into discussion on second chapter of economic survey. This chapter says India's medium-term growth outlook with optimism and hope. What this chapter is doing, it is giving a very comprehensive comparison of India's policies in last 8 years. So this will be like a very super document for mains. Because mains you need to write government schemes, you need to write what is the purpose or thinking level of the government. So in that level, this chapter is most important chapter. For prelims, we are only focusing on the most recent schemes which may have a chance to come in the exam. Otherwise, if there is no chance to come in the exam, we are neglecting it. For information, government objective is reforms, bring in reforms so that there will be sabka saath, sabka vikas. Objective will be fulfilled, and government is ease of business plus ease of living. Ease of living means people have better access to electricity, better access to sanitation, better access to all these basic amenities of life. Ease of business means there should be free flow of capital into the economy, there should be transactions happening freely in the economy, digital transactions are coming, there should be compliances, high level of compliances, people should pay tax, all this will come under ease of business. So these are 4 dimensions to it to increase the agriculture productivity. To get this objective, you need to do 4 things. Increase the private sector participation in development, trust-based governance system should be implemented, and government should be focused on creating public goods. Go ahead. These are the 4 parts you can see here. Go ahead. You need to note down, then note down first. Now what's the next part? We are coming into details of all of this. Creating public goods means what? Government are implementing so much of schemes for last 8 years. These schemes are like mostly large state year scheme, but your focus should be on most latest schemes which have higher chance of coming in the examination. Bharatmala scheme, what it is? For road connectivity. It is under Ministry of Road, Transport and Highways. Now it is creating so much these corridors throughout the country, road corridors throughout highways throughout the country. Sagarmala, it is port infrastructure development, port-led development idea has been taken up by this. It is under Ministry of Ports. Udan scheme means for 2 aspects is there for creating new regional routes in the Promotion of new regional routes in airports and creation of new airports are also part of new scheme. It is under Ministry of Aviation. National infrastructure pipeline, we will see in detail this. After that, two most important things for this year exam is Open Network for Digital Commerce, ONDC, and Account Aggregator Framework, AA framework it is also called. These two we will see detail in the coming slides. What else? Now the other creation of assets means it's not only physical asset, it is also digital assets. Digital asset, we have this eShram portal for registration of unorganized workers. These all are leading to more formalization in the economy. Swanidhi portal for street vendors, Udayam portal for MSMEs, GST and e-way bill system has been already been implemented. PM Gati Shakti, what it is? It is a governance reforms, like different ministries. Pehle clearance was coming from segregated. Now every ministries are registered under this PM Gati Shakti portal, so that the whole the clearance system, whole the interministerial coordination will be ensured through this, for especially for implementation of infrastructure projects. Go ahead. Bharatmala, I already told, it is under Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. Objective is these all creating economic corridors, inter-corridor feeder route, national corridors, creating roads, better roads. It is the objective of Bharatmala initiative. 34,800 kilometers road has to be constructed in 5 years or so. That is the target given. Similarly, Sagarmala means port-led development is the objective, which has port modernization, connectivity, port-led industrialization, coastal community development. These are different subsections of Sagarmala scheme. Basic core idea is port-led development. This is under 150 projects are undertaken. This is under Ministry of Ports and Shipping and Waterways. This ministry is undertaking this XYZ initiative. Go ahead. Now we have National Infrastructure Pipeline. What is National Infrastructure Pipeline? Simply a new model to fund, to mobilize more fund to infrastructure, long-term infrastructure development. How government is doing this? Government has selected 102 lakh crore worth of project has been selected, and this project has been propounded under this NIP pipeline. How funding is done? 39% of the funding should come from center, 39% from state, and 22% has to be mobilized from private sector. Most of the project, like 25 lakh crore of the 102 lakh crore, is going into energy sector. After that, roads, irrigation, mobility and networks are the other important sectors. So basic idea is mobilizing more fund to infrastructure development, and a federal system where central and state come together and invest more money into long-term infrastructure creation has been envisaged under National Infrastructure Pipeline. Go ahead. What is National Asset Monetization? Don't confuse asset monetization with any other of the infrastructure schemes. In all other infrastructure, government is either spending or mobilizing money from market or other governments and spending for creation of infrastructure. Now asset monetization come only for those projects, only for brownfield projects. What are brownfield projects? Already they have been created, not in greenfield project. There is no concept of asset monetization. Only already government has created a road. Already government has created a road. Now this maintenance and all other functioning of the road will be given in lease for private sector. Now when private sector take this asset for lease, they give a lump sum money to the government. Now government will invest this lump sum money and create more infrastructure. So after this lease period is over, this asset will be returned to the government. So there is no transfer of ownership. Only for a specific lease period, government is giving the XYZ asset, already created asset, to the private sector to run the asset and maintain the asset and take revenue from the asset. Now using this revenue, so by taking this revenue, they will give a lump sum to the government. This will be invested in the greenfield projects and new assets will be created throughout the economy. This is the core idea of asset monetization. Cycle you can see here, same idea which we have discussed right now. Now what else? different projects. Government has created a target of 6 lakh crore asset monetization in next 4 years from 2019. Now 20 to 25 period, 6 lakh crore target has been set. Now 15 railway stadiums, 25 airports, 160 coal mining projects all has been put up for asset monetization. All this you can read from basic facts, how much of this is XYZ here. Finish statement is there on basic concepts, like there is no permanent transfer of, there is no privatization of national asset is happening in asset monetization. Go ahead. Then this is more important concept because this is more recent one. National Land Monetization Corporation, NLMC. What is the objective of this organization? This is a new company set up by the government. Objective is different government organization has so much surplus land, especially the railway sector. Railways, defense have so much surplus land. So this land has to be monetized. Either it has to be sold to the private sector or it has to be given for lease to the private sector. So taking up this initiative, government started this new organization. Monetizing unused and underused assets, especially land assets, are the objective of this XYZ company. It is created as a wholly government of India owned company. 5,000 crore is the initial share, authorized share capital. Paid up share capital is 150 rupee crore. No need to go deeper into it. Know the objective and know the basic functions, basic features of the XYZ scheme. No, don't go into it, too much technical things. Now this is very important for this prelims. Everything about ONDC you should be very clear about. Even after the class you go and search and study this, because huge chance for coming in the exam, ONDC as well as account aggregator. What is ONDC? Now we have, everything is getting digital. Digitalization of Indian economy is a reality. You accept it now, even from digital transaction to buying products to going into XYZ, transportation to food delivery, everything is online. Now what is the challenge with this? There is monopoly in this sector. Amazon, Flipkart is delivering most of the products. And what is the problems with these websites? Whatever products you see are decided by the algorithm. Decided by the algorithm means the algorithm can force you to buy certain products. The algorithm can manipulate the customers to give preference to certain products or give not preference to other products. So who usually suffers in all this process? MSMEs, small industries which doesn't have so much of a brand or money power to compete with the bigger players. So to avoid this, and there is a other problem of interoperability. If you remember, when digitization of Indian transaction system has begun, there were a huge problem of interoperability. Like if you are using BHIM app, you cannot use another app. If you are using Paytm, you cannot use Bharat Pay. There cannot transfer in between. So interoperability that time was a very huge issue. Now how government tackled this? By creating a single framework called UPI. Now everything is transformed into UPI. That means the inter problem is completely avoided. So here also we have different services, like I already told, product buy karna services, transportation services, food delivery services, so many services are there online. So government is trying to achieve this algorithmic bias, that is in favor of bigger players, not in favor of MSMEs. Government want to bust this. Secondly, government want to bust this interoperability problem. What they achieved by creating UPI, government is trying to achieve in other sectors. So government with this objective has created this ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce. Here you can club all the services under one app, and this app will provide you mobility services, e-commerce services, delivery platforms, every services can be clubbed. And anyone can come and put up their products here, and every product will have equal preference. Even if you are MSME or even if you are Apple Mobile, everyone will have equal visibility under this platform. So the algorithmic bias component is completely avoided. This is the objective, this is the pathway, or this is the project that government has came up with. Open API means using this XYZ application interface, different variants of this application can be made up. It is not a closed system. Closed system means like Amazon. You cannot do only with Amazon. You can register your product with Amazon, then only you will put it in the site. Here you can use this database and evolve a variant of this for your own XYZ purposes and all. Similar to UPI, like UPI has different phases depending on different applications. Like you can sell money with phone number, you can send money with QR code. Like that, for different variants of applications, you can use this as a single point tool, single platform. So this is the objective concept is clear. Rest, I strongly recommend you go and read more about this. Great initiative. That's why I'm so much stressing. You should read more about it. Even if a very factual question come from this, you should be able to answer this, because this is such a big development. If this worked out, this can be next UPI, then that is disruptive development. UPI disrupted the payment system throughout India, and it is now getting global. Singapore has launched something very similar to UPI. Other countries are also getting motivation to adopt UPI. So if this is something that is next thing that is coming up, so you should. And UPSC usually go for questions from upcoming technologies, upcoming developments. Okay, that you have to check it out. Go ahead. Similar development is account aggregator framework. What does it mean? Basic idea is, today you have your bank account. You have bank account with ICICI Bank, you have bank account with HDFC, you have bank account with SBI Bank. So many your bank account you have with 10 different banks. Now if you want to do mutual fund investment, you will start account with some other mutual fund. Now if you want to invest in securities, you will start some other. If you want to do investment in share market, you will start something totally else. So for every economic motive, you have to start account with different people. Do you have to start demat account? Objective is all money transaction, all financial data is being there, but you have to depend on this data, like split across different platforms, different groupings. So it's become very difficult to track, and it become very difficult for people to manage. Yes, every time forgot password is our password. Yes. So to settle all these issues, government has come with concept called account aggregators. Now there will be account aggregator. It will say that I will manage all your data. You don't worry about it. You just tell me what data is with whom and give me the consent to manage it. So if you with one account aggregator, you can manage all your accounts with all different sections. Here one thing very important is, government is not coming and collecting your data. Account aggregator only come into picture when you give your data. You give your consent to keep your data there. Government, RBI, it is an RBI regulator entity. Account aggregators will be. RBI regulator means they will ensure that this data is safe. This data has highest level of encryption. If data transfer is happening, this is highly encrypted transaction tools are being used. So this is what only government does. Rest, government is not going to come and track your XYZ data. Government is this whole system is operating only based on consent, and after the user give the XYZ data to the system or account aggregator. Go ahead. This is all the concept that is diagrammatically represented here. Now what else we have? We have to move towards this trust based governance system. For that we have this IBC, RERA was there, decriminalization of minor offences. All this has been undertaken in the recent past. I am not going too much into it because this has been little old ones, and recent current affairs concept we already discussed. So basics of IBC, basics of RERA, I am not going into it. If you want, interested, you can read more about it. So go ahead. Promoting private sector as co-partner in development. This is very important. This is very much visible, clear objective of current government. That is, the private sector should be partner in development. Private sector should carry forward the government. It is also said that government has no role in business. Business all is responsibility of private sector. Government has only the role of regulator. Now disinvestment policy. What is disinvestment policy? What is the difference between disinvestment and privatization? Disinvestment can be done for 10% disinvestment, LIC disinvestment, something. It can be less than 51%, less than 51%. That means the ultimate managerial control with government only. Now, why government is doing disinvestment? To raise money. Now, privatization is a totally new concept. Government is giving the managerial control to private parties. That is, more than 51% of the stake will be given to private parties. So, private party can XYZ take the decision. Here the objective is not simply to raise the money. Air India, why it is privatized? Not to just get the money for the government, to improve the efficiency in the system, to get better managerial practices, to get improved better systems in running the XYZ industry. That is the objective of doing privatization. While disinvestment is a broader concept, it can be done for 10%, 20%, even 100% disinvestment can also be done. Here the more objective is focused on raising XYZ money for XYZ purposes. Clear? What else? PLI schemes. What is PLI scheme? What is the objective? It is therefore 22 sectors and all. What is the objective? To create champions of in each sectors. And what is the, how is the incentive module? Like if you are producing 100 units today, if you produce 200 units tomorrow, for this extra produced 100 units, you will get 4 to 6% tax rebates and other incentives. This is the general structure module. So you are being incentivized to produce more. This produce more means it can be different for different sectors. In semiconductor sector, it is design linked initiative, design linked incentives. You make new chip design, then you will be given XYZ incentives. Or in other sectors, it can be assemble in India. Assemble in India initiatives are also promoted under this PLI scheme. Liberalization of FDI policy, more sectors are being open. I'm not going to speak about it. National Logistics Policy 2022, that also not too much relevant. You can go and read about it if you're interested. Now this is PLI scheme XYZ, mobile phones eligibility. The objective is 4 to 6% incentive will be given on the incremental sales that XYZ companies are achieving. The major objective is to create champions in different sections. Now, enhancing productivity in agriculture. What is one of the peculiar thing of agriculture? During all these pandemic years, when industry and services are registering shrinking of GDP values, agriculture was still going during the pandemic. Agriculture in last 6 years have registered a high growth of 4.6%. That is considerably higher growth. And these are different initiatives of government that prompted this growth, from soil health card scheme to micro irrigation fund, promotion of FPOs, ENAM, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, and Kisan Rail. We only discuss on this Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. What is its focus? Whenever anybody talk about this credit supply into the agriculture system, most of the credit is talking about short-term credit, like for buying the seeds or buying the fertilizer. For that the farmer is given, that is the credit that is being talked about. But farming, if you really need to increase the productivity of the farming, there should be a focus on long-term credit into the agriculture sector. So this fund, like Aggregator Infrastructure Fund, the main focus is to give more long-term credit into the agriculture sector. That is the objective. And 1 lakh crore rupees fund will be mobilized into the agriculture sector, and this XYZ development, startups, post-harvest, cold chain, all these are will be focus areas of this XYZ fund. Go ahead. So that's all for today. What we have discussed briefly, first 2 chapters of economic survey. Conceptually, we have most of the things we have covered already. Only if there is a new element, you focus more on it. Rest most of the things are factual elements and some government schemes are there that you should more focus. Rest conceptual economy we already covered in our previous lectures. That's all for now. Thank you so much.